And I would like to turn things over to our wonderful presenters today. We have two presenters joining us to share on this topic of tackling food waste. I'm so grateful that they're able to share their knowledge and resources with us today. I'm going to turn it over to them to introduce themselves. And Jess, if you'd love to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just let me know if you need me to be any quieter or louder. So my name is Jess. I'm a dietitian with the health unit, but I'm also part of the Parry Sound Area Food Collaborative. So I live in North Bay. I was born in Ottawa, and I have a daughter named Avery, a dog named Gibson, and I love food. So I love growing food, cooking food, especially eating food and learning about food. So excited to learn more from Trina today and just, you know, learn from each other, because that always happens too.
Ajay Miswe, Washdale Gishik, Ishkwell, Nadishan soon, Moose Factory in Duchin, North Bay in Dushikan. Good morning, everybody. My name is Trina Rickard. I am the Healthy Living Coordinator at the North Bay Indigenous Friendship Center. I'm happy to be here today just to share a little bit about my knowledge on harvesting and food wastage. And yeah, happy to be here. Miigwech.
So I'll get started, and then I'll let Trina take over. So I'm just gonna share my screen with you, and I have a little PowerPoint, something pretty to look at as I go. And so I did mention I'm in North Bay, and where I am right now is traditional territory of Nipissing First Nation, Anishinaabe, and land, you know, used past and present by the Algonquin Nation and the Métis peoples. I think this topic is really important in terms of learning from each other and learning about respecting, you know, the land and the food as the sacred thing that it is, and learning from Indigenous peoples. I think too, there's some unlearning to do in terms of what our society looks like now with how we treat food. So I think learning is a big piece, and then, you know, my responsibility is to use the knowledge, right, to honor food and Mother Earth, and the earth, you know, this land that I'm a visitor on. So just kind of wanting to, to share that kind of is my intention with this. And yeah, I guess we'll get started. So I actually thought it would be good to start with a couple of polling questions. I'll just talk about the agenda really quick, but just talking about an overview of the issue of food waste, why it matters, and what we can do at home and what we can do beyond at home too, right? So hopefully you'll leave with some ideas, resources, and then excitement for the next webinar too. So maybe I'll get Delana to pull up the polling question. And as she does, I'll read it out. Actually, maybe I'll let you do it, Delana. I feel like you're the pro.
No worries. 1 second.
So as she's pulling it up, I'll get you thinking anyways. Oops. So the first question is, how much edible food waste is wasted each week in families with small children? And this is in Canada. So thinking of edible food waste that wouldn't be like bones and shells, right? That kind of thing. And for reference, a pound of butter would be like the weight, right, of 1 pound. So
the poll is live. We have answers trickling in, and we're still missing a few people. So like 5 more seconds. Okay.
So the answer is actually, so it's 3 kilograms or just over 6 pounds. So yeah, it's a lot every week, really, if we think about it, right? So, so about, over 6 pounds a week. The next question is about how much of the food that we throw away could actually be eaten. So it's asking in percentages. So how much of the food we throw away could actually be eaten?
So we are live with the poll. You should be able to just click your guess. We're not actually going to be grading these, by the way. They are anonymous. So Don't be shy.
So the answer is actually, it's 63%. So more than half of what we eat or what we throw away, we could actually eat.
Mm.
And then the next question is talking about like how much we spend or how much we waste on food waste. And we'll put the numbers up, but yeah, I'll let you take a guess. Again, this is all in Canada. And so I will share that the number that's up here, that's the answer, is the lower end of kind of what the data is showing us. But it's between $1,100 a year and $1,700 a year. And those numbers are a couple of years old. So it's actually probably more than that. And if we think of at the household level for the whole country, it's $17 billion, or I think 2.2 million, tons of edible food. So that's the cost piece. So that's a lot, especially with, yeah, it's not cheap nowadays to live, right? So, and then the last question, what do you think the types of food, what do you think is wasted most? It looks like the answer's up there, so you can see I'm not a teacher. I wouldn't make good quizzes. Vegetables and fruit.
Yeah, wow.
So maybe not that surprising. Maybe it is, but just to set the kind of the tone for, yeah, for the problem and how big of the problem is. So can I close this? Is that okay? There we go.
Yeah, if the poll is still open, there's just a little close at the top right, so you can get rid of it on your screen as well.
Okay, perfect. So there we go. So we talked about how much food we're wasting. How are we wasting it, right? It's not just about unfinished food on our plates or that kind of thing. We're often, we're buying too much in the first place. It's that kind of like excess overconsumption piece. We may be storing things the wrong way. We may be cooking too much, and we may have way too many leftovers that either go bad before we can eat them, or just get thrown out because people don't want them. And then, the best before date, sometimes we see that it's past, chuck it in the garbage. So there's lots of different ways we're wasting food, and, kind of talked about that culture of food waste. And we don't always think twice, right, about throwing food out. And in Canada, we have, high income countries like Canada, and Canada have a food waste climate footprint that's twice the size or twice as big as lower income countries, right? So our eating patterns and our food distribution systems are pretty wasteful. So why does this matter? Why do we need to make changes? I would love to hear in the chat box of why it matters to you or why you're here today. But I mean, a big part of this is food sustains us, food gives us life. And we want to respect it, right? Treat food with respect, and the land that it comes from. We want to treat that with respect. So a big part of that is for the planet. When food is wasted, it's wasted. It also wastes the land and the soil, the seeds, the water, all of those things that are needed to grow or produce that food. It gets wasted too. And at every single stage of growing food or producing food, the greenhouse gases are made, right? And they contribute to climate change. So if we're thinking of planting, growing, harvesting, processing, transporting, eating, disposing, there's all of these pieces. There's greenhouse gases made at every single stage, and then they're wasted if no one eats the food itself, right? This infographics from a food Matters Action Toolkit. It's really neat. It's kind of for youth, by youth. There's some cool lessons and that kind of thing in there. It's focused on North America. The farmland at the top, the farmland piece is focused on the United States. But so another thing to think of is, what's up here, and as well as, if food grown is, fertilizers and pesticides are used, they're now in the soil. And if for something that's wasted, if we're throwing food out, transporting food uses up or creates greenhouse gases. And then, things like the garbage, so the plastic bags, the plastic containers, cardboard boxes that things are shipped in, those are all now going into the landfill. And all of the human labor and energy just involved in every single step of this process are also wasted too. So the other piece is that when organics end up in the landfill and the food is wasted, it makes methane. So methane is a greenhouse gas that is actually more potent than carbon dioxide. Again, adding to climate change, affecting all of the plants, all of the animals, and also affecting our food systems. So we have another webinar next week about composting and how to keep organics out of the landfill. So stay tuned for that. And then this is just another way to look at the greenhouse gases that are kind of generated from all of the wasted food. Again, North America, not just Canada, but it's just a different, another way to illustrate that. And I wanted to show you a really quick video that kind of made me think differently about food waste. So I'd love to hear what you think. So I'll play this.
I'm not sure if it's muted, Jess, but we can't hear anything.
Oh, okay.
Still no audio, interestingly.
Hmm.
There you go.
Can we get strawberries? No, honey. Please? Okay.
So yeah, I just feel like that video was really impactful the first time I saw it. But I don't want anyone to feel discouraged or overwhelmed. If we focus on just a couple small things here and there, over and over again to kind of change our habits, there's a lot we can do. So don't want anyone to feel discouraged. And it's great that we're having this conversation today and talking about food waste. So if we're talking about at home, what are some things we can do? I'm going to kind of touch on 4 big things, but I love hearing people's ideas and tips in the chat box too, which I'll kind of almost need 2 screens to have that open, but I think Delina can fill me in. So I'll focus on meal planning, using recipes to reduce waste, storing food, and then the best before dates, expiry dates, kind of what's the difference. So planning meals, I do the meal planning at my house. It's not just about being organized. We can kind of think about it as a way to reduce food waste and to fight climate change. And, it keeps us organized, but kind of framing it differently. So, having a couple meals for the week in your head and taking a look at what you have, what you don't have, writing a list out. There's apps called like Listonic is one app that it organizes it in the way the grocery store is set up. You can share the list with other people in your household. It's good too if you're, both stopping on the way home from work and both grabbing duplicates of, let's say you both buy 12 bananas. You're going to have a lot of bananas. You're going to have fruit flies eventually, and you might get sick of them and end up throwing them out, right? If you don't know how to use them. The other thing is if you have a big food item, planning things around that, like leftovers or planned overs. And I'm just going to show the rock what you've got. The cool cookbook we sent out to some people. So it's this 2-in-1 recipe. This example is this cabbage skillet, sausage and cabbage skillet. And then you can, use the leftovers from that, and even talks about these potatoes with sprouts, to do a whole nother recipe, right? So people aren't getting bored of it. And speaking of recipes, right, using up what we have, fridge clean out recipes. So this again is from the Rock What You've Got cookbook, which inspired our name. This one pot wonder, it's 5 minutes of prep time, and you can see it's got 3 cups of just assorted veg, right? Whatever you have, really flexible to kind of use up what you have. And you can even do frozen veg. So if you don't make the recipe tonight like you planned, the vegetables aren't going to go bad. Zero waste and scrappy recipes, those are pretty neat. So thinking of like using the broccoli stem, right, with a big, it's a pretty big chunk, peeling it, salt and pepper, oil, roasting it, 10 minutes, 450 on either side, using up those kind of scrappy things. Beet tops, right, sauteing them and using them like Swiss chard. This is a neat cookbook. It's actually from IKEA. It's online, it's free, but it has ways to use up, really creative ways to use up scraps, and even using coffee grinds and eggshells up. So again, this is like 3.5 cups of leftover stems and different leaves, and it's like a really simple recipe, plant cakes, but there's like corn cob soup and banana peel bacon. There's watermelon rind, like pickled and candied watermelon rinds, just really things I hadn't thought about. This is from SaveTheFood.com. So they have really cool recipes. I just picked 3 that were neat, but this berried avocado mousse, I made this last week. I didn't use the recipe. I just had really ripe avocado that were kind of beyond just eating on their own. I added cocoa powder, maple syrup, vanilla, kind of mixed it into like a pudding, and it was delicious. Tasted it, added a bit more maple syrup. But there's a recipe here if you like recipes. Scraps falafel, it's using like the wrinkly veggies. It's a neat recipe, and it's pretty forgiving. And then the whole carrot soup uses the carrot roots, so the actual orange carrots, and then the tops too, right? And spices, potatoes, you can freeze it. So these kind of, I feel like Scrappy Recipes is a fun name. Another thing to talk about is how we store our food, right? So there's some neat resources that I might skip over these. Well, this just talks about, fruit and vegetables, they're wasted the most. So kind of how to store cucumbers. And if you have too many, pickle them. And same with grapes, right? We can, if we have too many or we can't finish them, freezing them for a treat. And don't throw the whole bag out, right? Just pick out the wrinkly ones. But I wanted to go to, so these websites, Love Food, Hate Waste, and Save the Food, they have some cool resources about storing food. And so if we look at bananas, it tells you kind of where to store them, if you can freeze them, how to use them up. And I like this, it talks about, I never knew, but like the stems that are sealed together can basically slow the ripening process, right? Because ethylene ripens fruit, so it keeps them fresher longer. Sometimes the grocery store has them kind of taped up, and I always wondered why. So that's a cool resource. And then this is the other one, Save the Food. food.com, and they have a whole section on storing food. So I feel like I was looking at even cheese. So it tells you again how to store it. You can, oh, this is cottage cheese, the hard cheese. Yeah, how to store it, because you can freeze cheese. I didn't know this, right? You can grate it, freeze it. Usually you'd want to cook with it then or melt it afterwards. Talks about like scraping or cutting the mold off. So it's fun to kind of explore that, and I always learn something. And then this is from Rockwood. We've got two. I was just going to really quickly touch on the crispers down here in our fridges, right? We have usually 2 crisper drawers with the little levers, and they control the humidity. So having the lever closed will make it a high humidity drawer. Having the lever open will make it low humidity. So the air comes in and out, so it's not humid. Closed, high humidity. So keeping things that would wilt in the high humidity drawer keeps them longer, right? So lettuce, asparagus, peppers, those kinds of things. And then the drawer that's the open one with air coming in and out would be things that make ethylene. So apples, grapes, pears, that kind of thing. And then you can see in the middle of the fridge is where it's the coldest part. So just don't put your lettuce. Don't put your lettuce there. And this is not to forget about the freezer. So, if you make, let's say you make a big batch of chili and you end up going away for the weekend, or you are sick of eating chili every day for lunch, freeze it in like an individual portion or in the big batch, label it, because I promise you will forget what it is. If it's orange or red, my whole freezer is like, I'll remember what that is. And then, a month later, it's like, is this sauce? Is this soup? I don't know what this is. And good quality freezing containers and bags helps prevent freezer burn. So you don't want to throw things out in the end anyways. And the other thing I do at home is if I have like a tablespoon or something left of tomato paste or curry paste that I don't have a plan for, it ends up going fuzzy in my fridge. So I'll freeze it in an ice cube tray or just on a plate and put it into a bag with a label. So it's not going to waste too, right? So best before and expiry dates. So the best before date doesn't mean a food can't be eaten safely. You can buy foods after the best before date is passed. There actually isn't a rule or like a requirement for foods to have a best before date that are shelf stable or that are okay for 90 days or for 3 months. So that would be things like dried pastas, canned food, frozen things. They don't actually need a best before date. The manufacturer usually just puts it on there. So sometimes we throw things out and we really don't need to, right? Of course, we have to store things the right way, but so expiry dates are different. So things with an expiry date can't be sold past the expiry date, but there's only a few foods that have expiry dates. And so I would love to hear people's guesses, because there's basically 4 kind of types of things that need have to have or do have expiry dates. So that would mean, if it's past the expiry date, it can't be sold and the nutrient content could change. So the 4 things are infant formula, liquid meal replacements, nutrition supplements like a tube feed or nutrition formula, I should say, and then nutritional supplements. So those are the only things with true expiry dates on them. So that question of, well, how long can I keep something past the best before date? There's no answer. It's no clear-cut answer, right? It's up for us to decide. But just knowing that food past its best before date is likely to smell bad or taste bad or look bad before it will make us sick. So speaking of best before, I don't know if anyone's heard of this app. It's neat. I hadn't until pretty recently, but I just took screenshots from my phone. It's called Flash Food. And it's a way to connect for grocery stores to connect with consumers and prevent food waste, reduce food waste. So the grocery store will, if there's food that's close to the best before date, they will, it can be meat, dairy, produce, shelf-stable things. They will kind of upload it to this app, and it's very heavily discounted. So it's like sometimes 75% off. And then like I use the app and I can say, I'm going to buy these. And then when I go to the grocery store, they have a fridge with flash food and I'll just pick up the item. So you can see Parry Sound, it just looks like only Harry's No Frills. North Bay, it's the 2 No Frills and the Independent. So it kind of seems like a Loblaws thing, but it's cool because it keeps track of the savings in dollars, and it keeps track of the savings in like carbon dioxide, like in kilometers you saved, without letting that food go to waste. So I thought that was something cool. And I mean, if you're already going to the grocery store and you don't have a plan for dinner, you can kind of base it on what there is. And a lot of the stuff you could even, you can freeze it. So I thought that was neat. So just, yeah, reminder, we've got this, right? Don't want it to feel overwhelming. And this is coming up at the end of April, Stop Food Waste Day. And I don't know, it could be a cool opportunity to do some sharing with people or like set little goals for yourself. So I just wanted to share that's coming. And then some neat accounts to follow, and I'm sure there's so many more. A lot that I've used today has been from these accounts. So Save the Food, Love Food, Hate Waste. There's that cool action toolkit. There's that app I was talking about, and Food First Newfoundland has really cool resources. But I'd love if people write in the chat. I can take a look after if there's any other cool. Like most of these accounts have Facebook and Instagram accounts too, so it's fun because that's where you learn about neat things, right, and different ideas. Okay, so I'm just gonna wrap up. I know that was a lot of information, but just one more thing to think about. And I think school buses are probably canceled today, so might not be many school students or teachers here, but what could we do at school or where we work, right, at our workplaces outside of our house? Because we have some responsibility, but there's more to it, right? So I think a big part is having conversations, right? Asking questions. If food is served where you work or if it's served for events at your workplace, is there a way to make sure less is thrown out? Could we, give reusable containers out to people so they can take what's left home with them instead of it just going right into the garbage can? Could we change how we order food, right? That too, sometimes we're just ordering excessive amounts that we really don't need to be doing. If food is prepared at your school or at your workplace, can we use up more of those like forgotten pieces that are edible and get creative with them? And then of course, we can think about composting too. So sometimes we just, we don't know what we don't know. So sharing what you've learned with other people can just be helpful. And then that last piece is like the thinking upstream. We talk about that a lot in public health. So sometimes it's writing a letter or having a conversation or sending an email to someone, who owns a store or a restaurant. It may be, the mayor or the premier. It could just be a teacher or principal, right? Maybe it's asking grocery stores to sign up to flash food so that, they're throwing less out in the garbage. Or I know there's a lot of food rescue happening in Parry Sound. So someone, must be organizing that and connecting people and making it happen, right? So it's this part kind of takes more time and it doesn't happen right away, but it's really important for people to make decisions, right? To know that we want to see change or to know that something's important, that an issue is important to us. So just wanted to end on that because, there's a lot we can do at home, but there's a lot that can happen at other places too. So and that's kind of it. So thank you, Miigwech. There's info for the composting webinar next week. Thanks for spending some time with me. I'm going to let Trina share, and then maybe we can all talk at the end and answer questions or that kind of thing. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'll let you go ahead. I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you, Jessica, for that great information. I think every time we talk, I continue to learn something new. And yeah, that's some great information. So first of all, I want to say thank you again for coming today. I have a bit of laryngitis, so I do apologize if my voice cuts in and out sometimes. I'm really going to try and get through this without having to lose my voice. So let me begin. I just want to share, today is National Indigenous Language Day. So you'll notice on some of my slides, I have some of the translations of the words used in our language, and I'll also be saying some of the words as well. So just to give you a little bit of information, if you're kind of wondering what I'm saying, I will also kind of just let you know what the word is. So I had to give this some thought when they asked me to kind of help present today. You know, like harvesting to me as an Indigenous person is just more than just harvesting. And, you know, with regards to food wastage, I really gave it some thought and trying to convey a little bit about, you know, about my knowledge. Just to give you a little background information, I am a Cree woman. You know, I am in North Bay at this time. And, you know, my home community is about 10 hours away. I live in the James Bay area, which is close to the Hudson Bay. So we're a small community of about 2,000 people. I come from an island. So some of the stuff that I'm talking about is within regards to where I come from. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, the water, Nippy. You know, water is life. You know, we're made up of mostly water. We can't actually do anything without water. You know, we can't grow our food. The animals are unable to live without having some kind of water source. So I just wanted to acknowledge, you know, that water is something that is really special. You know, we have water ceremonies to this day where we pray for the water, you know, for giving us this this opportunity to be able to like sustain life still.
Trina.
And yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just, you're not sharing your screen, and I remember this from your slide, so I think you might want to be.
Sorry about that. I'm all new to this lovely technology still. There we go. I apologize. We even rehearsed this and I still messed this up.
Thanks, Trina.
Okay, so water, Nibi. I'm just gonna shut off my screen here. Yeah, so like I said, water is, you know, something that is really important to everything. It's that connectiveness that we have with Mother Earth. And water is the giver of all life, and without clean water, all will perish, you know. And let me see here. So in talking about harvesting, this is just one example of what I'm going to be talking about today. Niska, the geese. You know, a lot of the information that I'm going to be sharing mostly involves animals. You know, I know for some people, you know, it's not something that you consume, and I totally accept that. And, you know, this is just something that is life to me, you know. We have ceremonies, celebrations, you know, community, it's family, it's feasting. We can also use clothing and crafting, and also regalia, which comes from like this one animal. You know, I was trying to really think about how when we harvest some things, you know, it's not just about the food and wasting of like everything, you know, like you have to take the feathers out, you know, the feathers can be used, you know, can be used in regalia, can be used in crafting, you know, even the down on the geese, you know, that's something that can be used in clothing, in blankets. Even the head part of this goose is a ceremony. You know, we have a goose dance ceremony where we pray and we celebrate the beginning of the goose season. You know, things are done in season, you know, like we have, there are 4 seasons in a year. You know, we only harvest things that when it's time to do it, and nothing usually goes to waste. So I just wanted to share that just a little bit about, you know, the geese. Another thing is cooking. This is one example of how we would prepare a geese. This is over a fire. I'm not sure if you can see the picture very well, but this is done like within a traditional teepee, and it's over a fire. This is one of like my favorite ways to eat a goose. It tastes, you know, like you have the smoke of the fire, and this is just one example. And these are other animals that we consume in our area. So there's like the moose, the rabbit, the partridge, the deer. We also have in our Inuit communities, which are not too far from us, we have seal, whale, you know, the deer, the duck, and then just other animals. And I just want to say that out of all these animals that are consumed, they're always shared within our community. You know, there's a celebration whenever there's a harvest, you know, families gather, we always have a big feast, and nothing goes to waste. Like, for example, this moose, you know, tobacco is always given to the land when someone harvests a moose. You know, it's always done in a respectful way. Everything that the moose has given its life to is always used respectfully. You know, from the bones, you know, the bones are used as tools. You know, the hide is used as clothing or crafts, you know, or footwear. Even the antlers are also used as utensils, you know, can be used as jewelry. So I just want to say that, you know, in my way of living, we always try not to waste anything. And if something, you know, for some reason, you know, if the animal's already like not well, because sometimes you'll encounter where there's, you know, animals that are not well, they're sick. You know, we always kind of discard the carcass still in a respectful way. You know, we don't just kind of toss it on the side of the road and, you know, just, you know, we don't do that in that not respectful way. And plants. I just want to kind of touch on a little bit about the plant life. You know, plants are used in so many different ways. You know, there are food, there are medicines, you know, their utility uses, you know, such as, you know, the bark, the boats, you know, the wood are used and made into boats. And spiritual, you know, like the cedar, tobacco, sage, and sweetgrass. I just wanted to mention that too, because, you know, nothing is just thrown out. So say, for instance, you know, if we were to gather some of the medicines that we're using, you know, even in the ash that we kind of burned, you know, we just don't throw that away. We don't throw it in the garbage. We give it back to Mother Earth, and we thank that medicine for doing its job. You know, like even the ash is still considered to be respected in that way, because it gave something to us, you know, in order to help us heal and stuff. So I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about that. And then even in the food, you know, like there's ceremonies that are done with regards to food. For example, the Haudenosaunee people hold several ceremonies like the sap, seed, strawberry, bean, and green corn ceremony. It honors that interconnectivity of plant and human life. You know, without having that connection, you know, to food, it's so important to our spirit, not only just to nourish our body, but also to feed our spirit. So it's just a little different perspective with regards to food. So I just want to say again, miigwech, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And does anybody have any questions?
All right, and seeing no other questions from our audience today, we will. All right, I love how perfect the timing for these webinars often is. So it's 11 o'clock, and I just want to say a huge thank you to our presenters for your time and your knowledge and your sharing and so much more. Miigwech, thank you. Also, a thank you to everyone who joined us today for this webinar. Please come back. We hope to see you this exact same time 1 week from now for the backyard composting webinar that I'll be leading. It is for the individual level to take action right in your backyard with compost, and we'll have a lot to say on the subject actually. So hopefully something that you don't want to miss. So enjoy the rest of your day. It's sunny here in Orville, so I hope you're seeing some sun as well, and maybe not that rain. And we'll see you next week, everyone. Have a great week.